Hey, and welcome to another episode of Guys Like Us Don't Die in Toilets, a Lethal Weapon retrospective, or podcast. I'm not sure, because it's been titled Every Which Way But Loose, a Clint Eastwood podcast, retrospective. This is Lethal Weapon 4. Hey, I'm Jake. I'm back, and I brought a friend with me. A new friend. An old friend, too, because I've technically known this SOB for like a decade. And I'll give you a little background. It's Chris Nolan from Geek Out.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
It's going all right. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. We just watched Lethal Weapon 4.
That was a very quick background.
It was. But yes,
I was thinking you were going to talk about high school and stuff.
I don't know. Some people, I'm sure some people know this. Some people might not know this, but you're like the tech guy for Geek Out.
Yes.
You've done, you know, do the producing tech babble. You can see I'm not the tech guy. Recording, it's all your equipment and everything.
Yeah, I say that I'm the audio engineer
there you
and
go.
Producer.
So for every Geek Out thing you've ever heard or may have seen, the tech wizardry is from Mr. Chris Nolan.
Mm-hmm. I've been here for the recording of every single episode of any Geek Out show.
Yeah,
that we've
and there's
done.
only been one Geek Out show where we weren't in this basement. Remember, it was upstairs.
Yeah,
that was a fun little.
That was a cute night.
Yeah, it was fun. I don't remember why were we.
My folks were out of town.
Oh yes, we just decided to have some fun.
So we didn't have to worry about not disturbing them.
That's right. Indeed, indeed.
So, to lift the veil of us not being in a studio.
Yeah. We're not in some fancy big time studio.
Yeah, no, this is my parents' basement.
Yeah. Well, I'm still got electric blue Superman staring at me.
Mm-hmm. Since day one.
So, Lethal Weapon 4. Give our friendly listeners a little bit of background to why you picked Lethal Weapon 4 and just the Lethal Weapon, kind of how it got into your life in the first place.
Well, so for the longest time, Lethal Weapon 4 was actually the only Lethal Weapon movie I'd ever seen. Mm-hmm. When it came out in, 98?
Yeah.
My dad wanted to go see it, so we saw it in theaters.
Nice.
And with no understanding of the prior Lethal Weapons, and just kind of went into it fresh. Luckily, the series is episodic enough that you didn't need to have seen the other ones. So like I wasn't completely lost, and my dad also like either I can't remember if he hadn't seen them or just he
I feel like your dad would have seen on the Lethal Weapon.
I feel like he would even if he hasn't, like he would love them.
Yeah,
he would like the Lethal Weapon movies, but like he with movies with him a lot, like they're in his eyes. He digests them and then he's done. He doesn't care to rewatch movies. He doesn't like absorb a lot of the information that he sees. Like he knows whether he liked it or not.
Yeah. But
like if you asked him to retell it, like he would give very vague plot points and stuff like that. So like
that's kind of what we do here.
Yeah. But like so like he wasn't he while we were watching it, he wasn't a very good source of like so what's with these guys? It's like, no, they're cops. Mm-hmm. And then that's basically what I would get. Didn't know anything about diplomatic immunity or anything like that.
Yeah, that's about as like simple as you can get it. They're cops,
and that's all I needed for the movie. So so that's all I knew. And until you started doing this Lethal Weapon podcast, I actually never saw the first three.
Well, I think having you watching the first three with you kind of started jettisoned the idea of doing this because it's kind of like with you and Back to the Future, where I usually want to watch all the Lethal Weapon movies. If I start one and you watch the first one, kind of watch them all in a fairly rapid succession or a couple weeks within each other, just because it's a fun series. Like you said, it's episodic. You don't have to have watched all, because like I said, you watched 4 and then you went back and watched 1, 2, and 3.
I will say now, having watched all 4 of them, relatively close together. I think we've done it in a little bit over a month span. We've seen all 4 of them, and while 4 was still very enjoyable, I gotta say it was even more so enjoyable just having the build up. Like I know who Leo is, I know who the family. I understand the in jokes about the boat and the house and stuff like that.
Does 4 pay off a little bit more now that you've seen the first 3?
Yeah.
Like
as its own standalone film, still very entertaining. And then now, like I feel like I really get everything that's going on.
Yeah, 4 for me is without a doubt like the most fun of the Lethal Weapon movies.
I'll agree with that.
The way to kind of break them down and we can kind of break the rules here a little bit because this is the end of the series, the film series.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, you guys are going to hear from best good friend Kev, Mike Sains, and Sam. Kind of just a fun little wrap up to get everything going here. So I'll give you that chance too to maybe talk. If you want to talk about the other Lethal Weapon movies too, feel free because this is going to be kind of a little family get together of sorts. But yeah, it's I think it's just the most fun. It's interesting because like the Lethal Weapon 2 model, we're in a day in a life of Miggs and Murtaugh.
Miggs, it's their relationship, like
it's
a portmanteau name.
Riggs and Murtaugh. Again, we just happen to stumble across another day in the life of, and they happen to have this counterfeit Chinese refugee kind of story.
That's actually got to be one of my favorite things about this series is that like other ones like Die Hard and stuff like that. Like it feels like he gets thrown into these crazy situations, and like that's all he does.
Yeah,
with Riggs and Murtaugh, like you actually believe that they do regular police work because it shows them doing regular police work.
And also, it's something we've visited every single time we've done an episode of this podcast. Is this world feels so lived in, and again, it helps so much because so much of the same cast and crew are in every single movie.
We even talked about that while we were watching it. Like it was 40 minutes in before really like the quote unquote like plot took place, but it didn't feel daunting. Like it didn't drag on those 40 minutes. Like it was 40 minutes of like character building.
It's funny. If anything, I would say like a point of like the movie kind of dragging is when it's doing like dealing with the counterfeit stuff. You know what I mean? Because yes, it's action. Jet Li's first American film, so you see him doing like some crazy awesome stuff. It's always fun to see that crazy martial arts kind of crazy action, especially against the one time Riggs and Murtaugh. And I know I'm going to say Miggs again on accident once or twice.
For it.
The one time Riggs and Murtaugh are going against Jet Li is when they're old. You know what I mean? Like they're too old for this shit. Riggs finally admits it in this one, and like the look of like somewhat joy in Murtaugh's eyes when he says it, like welcome to the club. I mean, the movie is entertaining when almost like you're saying the plot isn't really being pushed forward. It's dealing with, we get to see, Riggs becomes a dad, Murtaugh becomes a grandfather, and Chris Rock is introduced in this one. Kind of like Chris Rock was massive in the late '90s, only getting bigger as it went on, and becomes the son-in-law, Butters, or any other kind of name close to Butters that you can think of, Putters at one point. But let's kind of go back to the beginning and just talk about how great and insane the opening of Lethal Weapon 4 is.
Absolutely adore this opening scene.
Yeah.
Like you got.
Would you say it's your favorite?
Yeah,
because they all have pretty solid opening scenes.
Out of all four of them, I would like two very very close second because it starts right off with that car chase scene. But like this one, like you got a guy with a fucking flamethrower. On the streets of L.A. and a like a Uzi or some sort of machine gun. I'm not good with guns. But he just and you get Riggs talking Murtaugh into stripping down into his heart boxers
and doing a chicken dance.
Yeah, it's insane and perfectly sets the tone. I think for the movie because it's very lighthearted, but it's also like got some great action set pieces.
Yeah, it's again big explosions, big action, and big fun in this. And it's one where I feel like that opening is kind of like, hey, Lethal Weapon's hip. We're in the know. It's the big action, crazy, movies are going on.
How long had it been since 3? Do you know?
It was like 90. Yeah, is it 5? Yeah, I guess 92, 93 is when it came out. So it's been the biggest gap between Lethal Weapon films because again, this is one where they hadn't written the end of the movie yet. When they were filming. Oh, really? Yeah. The movie wrapped, if I remember correctly, 33 days before it was released in cinemas.
Oh, wow.
And so again, something that I didn't really think would be a thing when we were first starting this off, but it's so interesting talking about the movies is, again, Riggs wanted to die at the end of this film. Right. And it was more of kind of like maybe the Han Solo thing where Mel was like, look, this is a way to say it's over. Like there's no more Lethal Weapon movies. But kind of what happened with like Harrison Ford and stuff. had a fucking great time making it,
Yeah.
you know, and so
They pulled him back.
They pulled old Riggs back in and had a great time, and was like, look, I would love to do more. And it kind of was like, hey, maybe there's going to be another one, you know, at the time of this podcast, there is no news for a official Lethal Weapon 5.
I would love for an official Lethal Weapon 5.
What, just because for fun's sake here, what would you like to see in Lethal Weapon 5?
Oh man.
Is there a certain what would you like to explore the Lethal Weapon? Because we were kind of joking, like, hell, Lethal Weapon 5 would be fantastic if there was no action, and it was just them just like fishing, going out with Leo. You know, they had the kids, rebuilt the house, they made Code 7 again.
Yeah, they go out to sea and then like get stuck on like an oil rig.
Yeah, it becomes open water.
Yeah. Or
Cast Away with Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, right. They're stuck on a desert island together.
Yeah.
With Leo. So
with Leo.
Like, no!
Oh God, yeah. Leo's the only one who survives, though.
Yeah. Yeah. The other two just kill themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems about on
like,
par.
Okay.
I
makes
do
puppets out of them. Just to have tea parties.
Dark as shit.
Yeah, right.
I do enjoy.
Can we make our own Lethal Weapon 5?
Sure. I do enjoy Joe Pesci's performance in this. Like it goes full balls to the wall. Where
I feel
three is the one where he's annoying.
Yeah. Where it
and
feels
the
like
hair.
he was just like thrown in there to be like, oh, remember you guys loved Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Like kind of like forcing us, like, you loved Joe Pesci.
Look at his hair. You loved Joe Pesci, didn't you?
Love him. Kiss him.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it was like, yeah, like it started off kind of weird. Like when they're on the boat and like like he's like, wow, look at that. And
and that's a fucking word.
Yeah. Aft.
Yeah.
You said aft.
Well, that's what, we get the death of Code 7, unfortunately, in this one.
Finally got out to sea and then buried at sea.
Yeah. Rest in peace, boat. It's got its own Code 7 in the sky.
It's got a nice Viking funeral, though.
Yeah. It's fucking hard. What do you think of again, it tries to have some kind of social commentary.
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, where, like, they do the fuck you with the cell phone bit, again, dealing with the reoccurring gags and stuff. In this one, 1998 is when the movie comes out, and they have that scene about Afghanistan. Call me from Afghanistan. I don't know where Afghanistan is. Nowadays, like, that joke almost doesn't play because it's like Afghanistan is about as real world as you can get with the Lethal Weapon. Or inside, our world now.
You know what? Actually, that's probably what Lethal Weapon 5 would end up being about. Like something happens in Afghanistan or in like Syria.
And they send over 2 cops. There's only 2 guys for this job. It's Riggs and Murtaugh. Rambo's too busy with a potential TV series.
Yeah, right. Or like some weird, like half-assed, like, oh, Syrian refugees find their way into L.A. and they're actually like small-time, like suburban terrorists.
Yeah, and they just do Lethal Weapon 5. There was like again, I could be off on this, but the original I had read the joke script plot of Lethal Weapon 5 was like it's the 3 of them, Riggs, Murtaugh, and Leo, and they have like a one of those mobile homes, and they're on vacation and retired, and they like crash into this scenario, and they have to like save the day, a la like a Die Hard thing, you know, where they're like you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, or like Knight Rider.
Yeah, like Knight Rider. Lethal Weapon 5, Knight Rider.
Or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
That's
too. Kind of what happens.
That's too.
And I would love to see the 3 of them in drag.
What in the Lethal Weapon 4 universe, we were joking about the idea of the Forniverse. If would you rather have them deal with like future, like Riggs and Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon 5, if they get sent to the future and deal with RoboCop, or they get sent to the past and deal with Dirty Harry?
Oh man. Just because it's me, I think I would like RoboCop more. Yeah. Just because I find
I feel like RoboCop, the thing that they would even though it's not an 80s
and
movie,
have Frank Miller write it.
Oh fuck yeah, yeah. I feel like
I'm the goddamn Murtaugh.
Mel Gibson is like born to read Frank Miller dialogue, which is why I still say to this day, cast the motherfucker as Dark Knight Returns Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I'd go for it. Sorry, Batfleck.
Cast him as Judge Dredd. Cast him as Frank Castle.
Yeah.
Cast him as Wolverine.
Sure.
Cast him as who else? Captain Britain.
You just really want to get Captain
Canuck. He'd be a good Captain Canuck.
Is there a Captain Australia?
Fucking make it for him.
Do you think he could bring back his Australian accent?
I think so. I don't think
that's one thing
but
that
here's the thing,
was
though.
really missing for me. Like, there's something special about every time his Australian accent slipped in the first three, and like I didn't hear it at all.
As Sam pointed out, it doesn't slip in 3. It's like full on there.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
It's like there. You're like, wait a second.
He's the farthest removed from Australia in the third one.
Yeah,
but
he's never been farther from Australia when he's filming Lethal Weapon 3 than he was in Lethal Weapon 3.
Yeah.
And yet it's there more than when he's filming any of the Mad Max films.
Yeah, right.
How about this? How about this for a fucking thing?
Yeah.
Riggs and Murtaugh, Sense of the Future, right?
Wasteland.
Fucking Wasteland. V8 Interceptor pulls up and fucking Mel pops out. And Mel looks at him. And hear with the saxophone, and then the drums. Dun, 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 dun.
So Lethal Weapon Fury Road.
He's like, get in, and they just pop in the car, pull off.
I would love
Danny Glover's sticking his head out with a siren.
And then the Mad Max's dog is doing the same thing out the back window.
You know what the dog's name is in the Mad Max universe?
What?
Dog.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They lost all creativity once the bombs dropped and the water was dried up in the wasteland.
Yeah, and the water was poisoned.
Yeah. The gasoline.
But
let's go back to Mel Gibson and who superheroes he could play, because I feel like that's really important.
I feel like he could do Superman. Why not?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
with
Lethal Weapon 1 through 3 hair for the return of
Superman. The return. He could play. Here's the thing. Here's the fucking thing, right?
I like how this is a Lethal Weapon 4 podcast.
Yeah. Well, all the stuff we're talking about now is Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 4. Yeah. It's that Mel Gibson, so it keeps it on topic.
Okay.
Because it's very important.
So not big hair Mel Gibson.
No, but at the same time, he'll wear a wig.
Yeah.
Death of Superman, starring Mel Gibson, directed by Mel Gibson, written by Frank Miller.
Yeah,
even though he had nothing to do with the comic book.
That's right. He had nothing to do with the Spirit, and he did a great job on that movie.
That shows in that one, motherfucker. And I love both of those things separately. It's like I love peanut butter and jelly, but the equivalent is it's like if you put peanut butter and jelly together and it fucking sucked. That would be Frank Miller's The Spirit.
Right. Well, that's like if you like peanut butter and jelly, but you like creamy peanut butter.
Yeah.
But on the sandwich you have crunchy peanut butter and you like strawberry jam.
Yeah.
But it's
grape.
Yeah, it's like shit.
Yeah. It's like I like relish and I like peanut butter, but if you mix it, that's Frank Miller's The Spirit.
Yeah.
So you get by the way, this is Lethal Weapon 4 we're talking about. If you're just tuning in. So it gets Death of Superman starring Mel Gibson. Plays Superman and Clark Kent. Right?
Also plays Brainiac.
He plays Brainiac.
And Doomsday.
He's that good. Mocap Doomsday.
Yeah. Well, actually, have what's his name? Mocap King from.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah, Andy Serkis.
That's fair.
He'll be.
That's
Doomsday.
Fair. That's fair. Because this is going to win all kinds of Oscars.
And then
he plays the Metropolis Kid.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah,
a younger version of him.
But the stand-up performance.
We'll get Mad Max era Mel Gibson.
Oh shit! Yeah.
To be the
when he was in that movie
Kid.
Ted, I think, or Tim, way back in the day. I think it's Tim, and or Gallipoli Mel Gibson. But you do that stuff they did to Michael Douglas and Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Make him look super young.
Yeah.
Don't call him the Metropolis Kid. And he's like dancing around. But the Superman he was born to play would be the fucking Eradicator.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cyborg Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Glover is Steel.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right?
We got it.
It's done.
Sorry, Shaq.
Yeah.
Don't get to reprise that role.
Yeah, that one's done. But
wait for Kazam 2.
So that's The Death of Superman, starring Mel Gibson, directed by Mel Gibson, written by Frank Miller.
Yeah.
And co-starring Danny Glover.
Yeah.
Where's Joe Pesci going to fit into this?
Jimmy Olsen?
Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
Okay. Rene Russo, Lois Lane.
Yeah.
What's his face? Is Perry White.
Yeah.
The captain.
Yeah.
Dick Downer's bro.
Yeah.
Broheim.
Yeah, I'm glad that we were both thinking of the same guy.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
a Lethal Weapon podcast,
yeah,
and I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
But and then
I could look it up real quick.
That would be cool.
Lethal Weapon
and then the psychiatrist would be Cat Grant.
Yeah, of course. Captain Ed Murphy.
Yes. Steve
Cahan.
Okay.
Or Kahan. Who knows?
Okay. Is he even a fucking Donner? Because I was always under the assumption he was a Donner from the first one because he looks like a Donner. Unless he got married and took the wife's name.
It does not say on his Wikipedia page that he is.
Well,
but it does say that he is best known for his role in the Lethal Weapon franchise, and as police detective Armis in Superman, also directed by Dick Donner.
Yeah. That's weird because they look like Donners. I'm gonna stick with them with the Donners.
Yeah, go for it. He was the technician in Scrooged.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you knew he was the sergeant in Predator too.
Yeah. He's in Dick Donner. You know, like I said, he likes having the same guys around.
He's Captain Healy in Demolition Man.
Oh yeah. Captain, man. You got to do it.
Oh, and he was also in Conspiracy Theory.
Another Donner.
Yeah. And Timeline.
Not Donner.
No, but a bad movie.
Yeah.
So we got Paul Walker in it.
So we got Superman, the Death of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's like all in like the fucking black suit.
Yeah.
With the
hair.
80s hair.
Yeah.
Wow. That'd be awesome. That is just going to be the best.
So in Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah. But we are going back to Lethal Weapon 4.
Now that we've spent 20 minutes. You know what? We're building this podcast like Lethal Weapon 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, out of nowhere, we're going to hit you with our favorite shit from Lethal Weapon 4, and it's going to just breeze by. What are some of your favorite moments from Lethal Weapon 4? I'll start with a really tough question.
Well, yeah, right. I'm going to go with one of the things that stuck with me the most, or a couple of the things that stuck with me the most from watching it when it first came out. Like one of the things that really stuck with me was like Jet Li's like prayer beads. You know, using that as like a garrote.
Yeah.
You know, and like
I like that word. It's a great word.
Right, and it's very descriptive because that's I'm doing the hand motion. Yeah. No one can see me except Jake and Sam, who's giggling in the background.
Yeah.
So like that always stuck with me. I was always like, that's so cool. He's like, you know, they're hidden as beads, but they're really, you know, for choking people. And then
what a contradictory weapon,
right?
You know?
Yeah, prayers for peace, and then death.
Deep. That's some deep.
Yeah, right. Goodness. Good job, Donner.
Yeah.
And then the way that Riggs teases Murtaugh with the article, you know, where it has the picture of him in his underwear. Like it just, there was something so perfect about that, and like it was one of the scenes that I was actually most, you know, after the initial like scene, you know, the guy with the flamethrower, the callback to it, you know, was one of my more anticipated scenes. Actually, was because I love the way that, like, you know, he's like. Where Riggs is like, yeah, come on, guys, let's stop playing with this, and he's like being like, give it to me, and like post it back up like that. I don't know if that informed my kind of humor, but like I'm, you know, very much in that same vein of like I like to pick on people, you know, like childish teasing and stuff like that constantly, and then.
It just adds to that all these guys hang out.
Yeah.
You know, all these police officers hang out, and it kind of with like the condom tree in 2. You know, just. You know, they're ripping on each other. It's, you know, it's obvious that it's very easy for them. Like Murtaugh is the butt of the jokes. You know, he's the older guy. But yeah, just you know, they constantly have like he constantly has that article ready to go.
And then I love the scene where Leo and Butters first meet, where you know Leo pulls up next to him and he's like, oh hey, who's the perp? And Chris Rock, being forever a comedian, you know, goes on like a long monologue about like, oh, you just because you see you know, a brother in the back seat, you know, he's automatically a perp. Look at my suit. Look at my tie.
Yeah.
Do I look like the Blood's accountant or whatever he says? And he's like, look at the badge. Look at the gun. Yeah. And like for whatever reason, I thought that was like the funniest string of lines back when I saw it.
I just thought of something. Going back to the Death of Superman.
Sure.
Chris Rock should be Jimmy Olsen because he was supposed to be fucking Jimmy Olsen, not fucking Jimmy Olsen. He was supposed to be.
Been. I'm not here to judge.
Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci would be. What if he was Brainiac? Just this orb of a man.
Yeah.
Just the green head floating around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to change reality.
He would be Booster Gold getting punched into space. That's how the movie would open. Doomsday catching him.
Doomsday.
Yeah. Okay. Doomsday. Whatever.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the fucking delivery. Again, it's a lived-in performance by this point. You know, Pesci's kind of like at the point of like retirement mode. And will only come out for like his buddies and his friends. And again,
so another Lethal Weapon movie.
Let's do it. We got the power. Someone important is going to hear this podcast.
Mel.
Yeah. Mel's going to hear this.
And he's going to be like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah, you're right. I'm Australian again.
Bring back the Australian accent for Lethal Weapon 5.
Yeah, bring it back. Bring back the fucking mullet, too.
Yes. Return to form.
Yeah. He's got some stuff coming in the works that I'm excited for.
Yeah.
The, I can't remember the name of the movie.
Riveting.
Yeah. The fucking World War II movie he's doing. Hacksaw Ridge. Starring Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man.
Oh.
Who's not in Lethal Weapon 4.
No.
But no, let's talk about Lethal Weapon 4.
But he is in The Death of Superman.
He is going to be in Death of Superman as we're recasting. He's going to be Metropolis Kid.
Yeah. That's fine. I'm okay with that. You know what? He could do the body of Metropolis Kid and then just superimpose
Mel Gibson's
young
face.
Mel Gibson face.
There you go. Another thing I like about this movie, the Lethal Weapon 4 movie, not Death of Superman, is...
Although we are loving this Death of Superman.
Yeah. It's building up to... Like, the resolution of this movie isn't them saving the day and killing Jet Li 5,000 times over and stopping, another freaking contraband, or not contraband.
Counterfeit.
Thank you. I was like, what's that Limp Bizkit song? Counterfeit. And it's the birth of Riggs's son, or kid, And, again, it calls back to that, his wife has obviously has been dead the entire series. And Mike and I went super hardcore into that in the Lethal Weapon 2 podcast, but kind of has this great little resolution with him and her, and very much so. Where outside of 3, it is very much about him getting over the death of his wife, Victoria, and him still. And it's great because it's never that he gets over, and we stressed that in earlier podcasts too, that he never gets over Victoria's death. It feels something where he learns to live with it. And at the end of the movie, it's a great moment too, because he still has the wedding band. And that's something that he's in the first movie, he's still wearing it even though he's not, married, and just causes, friction, and he's just pain and anger and stuff like that. But then you get the moment where if Joe Pesci hadn't won for Goodfellas, he would have won an Oscar for his Froggy story at the end of Lethal Weapon 4. It's great because at the end of the day, no matter how annoying he is, for me, and I think probably for you too, you love Leo.
Yeah.
And you feel bad for the dude. And they do have the payoff. It's so many little tiny moments are the payoffs to Leo. When he tells the Froggy story, and I still don't really know why that's, it's there, but but the moment where Riggs does something as simple as he hugs Leo, and he's stay around and meet the kid. And that is the biggest fucking thing in the world to Leo. You see, he realizes all right, his job is done. He got Riggs to the emergency room. They got married, brought the rabbi, and they're going to have the kid. All right, they're going to live their life. And he's like, no, stay around. I want you to be the kid, blah, blah, blah. And also the simple act of come in the picture, man. Your family too.
Yeah, give that guy the camera.
And it's this little jolt that it gives Leo at the end. The end of the movie, it's weird. Trying to overanalyze and think about these movies doing this podcast, it's such a little Leo thing. Even though you see Murtaugh's grandson and Riggs's kid, it's Leo gets his happy ending. You know what I mean? Even though he really doesn't do dick in this movie. Yeah.
One of the really nice things about the Froggy story, or at least that scene, is that you really see that prior to that, Leo was just kind of this gnat that flew around and annoyed people, and it was kind of he was oblivious to how annoying he was. But in that scene, you really he really kind of pretty much states no, I know you guys fuck with me, you guys push me around, because I am pushable, I open myself up to that, and it's fine because you guys, you're my friends, you're my only friends. Not so many words. You know?
And also it's something where it's not everybody in this movie, all the buddies and stuff, they all rip on each other. You know what I mean? And they fucking rip on. Excuse me. They rip on Leo with a little more
malice
and gusto. But and you even get that Riggs one. He's like, I'm terrible to you, man. And also let's kind of look at. to veer a course here. Get back on Lethal Weapon 4. We love the gags in Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah.
This movie, I think, out of all of them, deals with the do we go on 3, like 3 or 4 different times.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my
go on 2.
Maybe my favorite like moment of all of it is what we always go on 3, and he goes, "There's no time," and then he yells 2.
Yeah.
Which is in the beginning where you get Chicken Dance, half naked Danny Glover, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And even to the point, like they do it a couple more times, but like even to the point where at the end, Murtaugh's or Riggs is underwater, pinned underneath, cement, and like they're counting. They're like, 2, and you even see like Riggs is like counting 1, 2, and Murtaugh's like,
They've been doing this for
fumbling his fingers, and then they finally just lift it up.
You get the strength because they will it. That's the big thing in Lethal Weapon 4. They will it. Like, I hear you, Riggs. I will it. Because it does play like the moment where you're like, maybe this dude's going to die because they keep doing like the false ending where he's going to make it out okay. And then, a chunk of shit falls on top of him. He's stuck down there. And he's just like, where were you, man? He's like, I was fucking knocked out.
What took you so long?
Yeah. But, it's the most over-the-top Lethal Weapon as well. And I mean that in a good way because it does it in, like you said, it's lighthearted and it's fun. Yes. It's an arm wrestling film. List the greatest arm wrestling films of all time.
Over the top.
Over the top.
Done.
Yeah. So, no, but, you get the great car chase on the freeway.
So cool.
With Riggs on a table holding on the plastic.
Basically surfing down the freeway.
Surfing, yeah. You get, you get the crazy opening with the flamethrower automatic weapon man. You get Jet Li doing crazy kicks all over the place, and again,
you get like pre-parkour.
Yeah,
running through Chinatown.
You get, another thing, running gag throughout the series is like the Murtaugh house gets fucked up. The Murtaugh house is all but like demolished in this film. It's lit on fire.
Do you think the bomb going off on the toilet seat did more overall damage?
No, because it was
more like. Do you think that
to like the plumbing?
Do you think that like wrecked the bathroom? Whereas like everything now is just kind of like overall scorched, and therefore like they have to remodel everything. Yeah. Whereas like that the bomb, I imagine, probably destroyed that bathroom. So like that bathroom is fucked. Yeah. But the rest of the house is all right because they put up the blast.
Yeah, the rest of the house is good because they probably just had to like reinstall the toilet. Toilet, but in this one it's like shit's falling over.
The bath was even safe enough for them to cuddle in it.
Yeah, that's such a great scene. What do you think about Lethal Weapon 2?
That's probably personally like I'd go 4 is my favorite, and then 2. Yeah. Right after it.
I'm glad you liked 4 a lot too, because I've run into some people where it's like their least favorite.
Really? It's their Quest for Peace.
It's their Quest for Peace,
which isn't even the worst Superman movie.
Yeah. That'd be a whole other ball of wax.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it
later in this podcast.
No, like I said, I'm going to be visiting with each member of the Lethal Weapon squad. And as I'm kind of wrapping up with you here, Chris, I wanted to just any like final thoughts about Lethal Weapon, anything that you didn't get to say because you weren't on for the first 3 that you wanted to be like, hey, this was my favorite thing from 1, 2, or 3, or just overall how you feel about the Lethal Weapon series now.
Well, like the big thing is like I love how real, like you've said this a whole bunch of times, but like I love how real the world feels, and like that's why the exposition and overall like quote unquote dull scenes where nothing's really happening still keeps your interest, because like they're real characters. It's not just it's not just John McClane like bitching about how he and his wife don't get along, and it's like 2 seconds and it's kind of like a throwaway line that just barely helps drive the plot along. Yeah. It's actually like these people are like family members, and like you really feel that really hardcore in these films, and they did a great job of making you believe that throughout the entire series. And I think part of it is because they used the same family to make the movies, not just the same actors, but the same crew, Same, a lot of the same set pieces. It looked like, you know, like the house was always the house. You know, I'm sure the boat was always the boat. You know, shit like that. Like, you know, little things like that, you know, really add up. And then like, even though like you didn't necessarily like always have the same writer because Shane Black, you know, left.
And then Jeffrey Boehm, who wrote, basically did the rewrites on 2 and 3, and like I said, mentioned did Last Crusade and The Phantom, and unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. Supposedly wrote a script that everyone really liked, but the studio decided not to go with it. Like I said, this is a movie like they are on the run with this movie. The fact that, if I remember, 33 days before they released the film, they were like going on the fly. You know, they had a guy who was editing the film who had never worked with that software and technology before.
Really?
You know, like, I mean, he was a professional. I mean, he was an editor, like a film editor.
Right.
He had done many films before that. But like, the idea, it's like, hey, the film's coming out in like a month.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool, man. Well, I'm glad you came on. I'm glad. I remember, like, when I was kind of, you know, messing with the ideas, is it going to be just about Lethal Weapon? Is it going to be about Mel Gibson movies or whatever? Which may still happen down the line. You know, you were one of the first guys to jump on. Before. Actually, pretty much everyone jumped right on from the movies they wanted to do. Who was on? For,
it was easy
4.
for you.
Yeah. It was easy.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. I loved it.
Just in case you were curious, since I have the Wikipedia page open, the official budget for this movie, and I say official because skimming through the article, it looks like there's a little bit of discrepancy between what it might have actually been. But the official budget was $100 million for this movie. Gross, 285.
Not bad.
Yeah, almost tripled the budget.
Not bad.
The estimated budget was 120 to 150 million. Yeah, but Warner Brothers is like, no, it was just 100. Just 100, guys. But yeah, so fun all around.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you came on. Yeah. I'm glad we talked about Superman and a little bit of Lethal Weapon. What we're gonna do now, I'm gonna tune in with my best good friend Kev. We're gonna talk a little bit about the series. He was on for the first Lethal Weapon, and kind of get him to talk about just a couple minutes about the films he wasn't on for, and a final kind of sum up for Lethal Weapon. And then we'll talk to Mike, talk to Sam, and I'll leave you with my final thoughts here. So here we go, going over to Kevin, and I'll talk to you guys in a couple of nanoseconds because I will be on that one as well. All right, I got Kevin with me, best good friend Kev here with me, who you guys may remember was a part of the first Lethal Weapon podcast a couple months ago. I brought him back to kind of ask him any kind of final thoughts he had on Lethal Weapon, and then ask him a question about maybe a future podcast. Kevin, thanks for coming back for one last time on the Lethal Weapon podcast, man.
Well, thanks for having me, Jake.
It's
my best friend.
Best good friend. It was a pleasure to have you on. Of course, you're I think my oldest friend here in the good old state of Virginia, and a movie all about friendships and a strong bond and chemistry and whatnot. Oh, and the whole cop thing too. But you were definitely one of the first people I thought about having on. Anything you wanted to talk about, kind of that you didn't get a chance to with because you were just really kind of exclusively talking about the first Lethal Weapon? Any kind of thing about the 2nd through 4?
Interesting question. Let me see. I don't know. That's tough. Kind of put me on the spot here.
I mean, is there? I think I asked you in the episode we did, but is the first one definitively your favorite episode or favorite movie?
I'd probably go. They're probably my favorite in the order that they were released. I'd probably go 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Although I know some people don't enjoy 4 as much as others, but I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, no, 4's good. I mean, that was the one Chris jumped on when I was kind of going through it. He was like, I definitely do 4 because that was the first one he saw actually.
Okay.
So. Yeah, the only one he saw, and then it became, we watched the other ones down the road, which is kind of one of the things that inspired me to do this in the first place. And the whole idea of like, I don't even really know what my favorite Lethal Weapon is. It's always kind of between 1 and 2. But doing this podcast, I think 1 is probably my favorite overall. And I'm not just saying it because it was the best good friend Kev episode, but but yeah, man, like I said, it was a lot of fun kind of going through and doing these Lethal Weapon podcasts with my buddies here. I kind of had this idea of doing not really a sequel podcast, but down the line, maybe not the next one, podcast called Mel and Me, which is just me going through the Mel Gibson movie career, directing and acting. Is there a movie that you would like to put the best good friend stamp of approval on?
There are two that come to mind. The first thing that popped into my head was Ransom.
Oh yes, of course.
But after thinking about it, Maverick is just like an awesome, really good movie. So I probably have to go with Maverick.
Maverick, okay, yeah, Maverick is fantastic, and it kind of has a Lethal Weapon thing going on in it too.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, so awesome, man. Well, hey, look, I really appreciate you coming back and reminiscing about all the fun Lethal Weapon, the friendships built from there, and just reminiscing with me. Thanks a lot, best good friend Kev.
I'm no problem. I'm glad that everyone survived the blizzard.
Yeah, right. Seriously, one of the reasons I had you and Mike Skype and call in was because I still don't know. It's kind of crazy around here trying to get out here. So, but yeah, everyone in one of the I think a more recent podcast, we kind of told some funny, not really horror stories, but just kind of funny stories of being stuck in the snow because we're all in the Little Rocky Run area. And especially your area, man, like the kind of the private drive dead end area, like they don't really plow. You got to dig yourself out.
You do your own work down there.
That's right.
Yeah, I nearly lost my mind after like 3 days. But
well, glad to hear you survived well. I think you're going over to you said your buddy Petch's house or our buddy Petch's house.
I'm looking after their pups.
So say hey for him if you talk to him for me. And again, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, man. I will talk to you soon.
All right, I got Mike back with me, who was on for Lethal Weapon 2, the podcast where we blew open the notion of the third act of that movie and kind of fell in love with it all over again in a whole new way. Mike, how's it going? Thanks for coming back on for this kind of final wrap-up.
Thanks for having me back on. It was a pleasure being on for such an iconic film like Lethal Weapon 2. And to analyze it the way we have, I've definitely thought about it since we recorded the episode, like, oh, that really could have been something else, huh?
Yeah.
But, I was telling you before, to warm up for this appearance, I watched every trailer for each one of the movies, and each installment is not without their charms. Even with the many weaknesses that they come with, it's just it's a charming franchise.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I think that's something that, like, going into depth on these four films and talking with you and my other three buddies, I think charming is something that you wouldn't necessarily always think of when you think of like an action franchise, but that is there. And I think that so much is built in the DNA of the Shane Black, original characters and script that he wrote. There's that charm there.
Yeah, definitely. And the only other franchise that really, me, in my personal opinion, that really captured it like that and had that lasting appeal is Die Hard.
Yeah.
But that's a one-man show. And, the diminishing returns really started to pile on when he had sidekicks.
Yeah.
Whereas with Lethal Weapon, you expect Riggs and Murtaugh. Since Riggs made it out of the second one, like we talked about ad nauseum, you expect him to be there. It's really the addition of the extra characters, particularly by the time you get to number 4, where it's like, oh boy, this is okay.
Is 4 for you where it starts to turn into that kind of the Die Hard syndrome where they become these invincible action heroes, like Riggs hanging off the back of the mobile home on the table and fighting Jet Li and all that kind of craziness?
Well, no, I think that the unkillable God mode Riggs has existed since the first movie.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
It was highlighted in the second movie with him hanging off of the front of the truck in the surfboard decapitation chase scene. And then the third movie, you have the absolutely video game level insane motorcycle chase. And then the fourth one is just like old people getting their asses handed to them over and over by this martial arts expert.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's even with the diminishing returns, it's just inevitably charming.
Yeah.
Because Gibson knows how to make his thing work, and so does Glover.
Yeah.
And neither of them got fat. None of them lost a step. Like, everybody's funny, everybody's charming, they've all got those one-liners. And even though it becomes tiresome, it's never like, oh, well, you lost your touch.
Yeah.
That's never really a factor. If anybody ever felt like that, it was Renee Russo. Like, her, as soon as she starts poking her head around, it's like, oh boy, the charm is really starting to go out the window here. It's like real Andy McDowell syndrome.
Because this is being attached to the Lethal Weapon 4 episode with Chris. One of the most charming things I think, and one of my favorite moments from 4, is there's that moment where Murtaugh and them are in the locker room, and Murtaugh's gun goes off. And what Riggs does is, again, it all comes down to me with doing this and having my friends on the podcast is like, the bond and the friendship thing, is he goes out of his way to be crazy. So the focus is taken away from Murtaugh and it's put on Riggs. So Murtaugh doesn't feel bad. Like that's that's such a charming thing. And that chemistry that is built since the first movie.
Yeah. And that particular moment, I think, out of the whole franchise really is that where it's like, well, you are getting too old for this shit, huh?
Yeah. When you can't control your gun going off, and they have the giant bodybuilder locker guy walking around. But real quick, Mike, as we're kind of wrapping up the thing here, any kind of final quick thoughts on Lethal Weapon as a whole? And then you don't have to have an answer now, but I'm planning on doing kind of like a Mel and Me podcast in the future where we talk about Mel Gibson movies that aren't Lethal Weapon. Is there a movie that you would want to lock in right now?
Okay, well, I'll go with the second question first. I think if I had to pick, I'm either going to go like What Women Want.
Nice.
Because that's Mel Gibson just at the height of his hubris.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, my crotch is everything. That's a classic. And then also, I'm really thinking like The Man Without a Face.
Oh, yeah. I love that movie.
The first real like, oh, wow, Mel Gibson can do the dad thing, but also the crazy flawed character thing.
And it's the first movie he directed, too. So, you get the start of all that.
Yeah. So, eventually that child's coming-of-age story leads to, Apocalypto.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. But as far as the Lethal Weapon franchise, final thoughts on that are, since the last movie came out in 1998, Hollywood since then has been fiending to find a Lethal Weapon replacement. Since the 4 successful movies, they just haven't really been able to replicate the buddy cop, wacky, kinetic action movie combo. And my money, we were just saying before, my money right now seems to be on Ride Along of all things.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because now that second one is coming, and the first one made like $200 million internationally, there's no way the studio doesn't churn out 2 or 3 more of those movies. Especially with the dynamic of Ice Cube and Kevin Hart, which is basically new generation Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, just without any subtlety at all.
No, I hear. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. There's that TV show that I guess they're still proposing being made, the Lethal Weapon TV series.
Young Adventures of Lethal Weapon.
Young Adventures of the Lethal Weapon, but I won't believe it until I'm sitting down watching the pilot, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But
please don't do that.
But anyway,
if Point Break proved anything, it's leave the 80s action movies alone.
No, I hear you, man. But Mike, hey man, as always, I appreciate you being on. It was a lot of fun. Kind of dissecting Lethal Weapon 2 with you, and I look forward to doing more stuff in the future, man.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on again, and talk to you guys soon.
Sounds good.
All right, Mike. Great guest. Great to have him back on. Great to talk to him. We're coming up on the guy we talked to for Lethal Weapon 3 to get his final thoughts on the series. You know him. You love him. He's the voice of Geek Out. He's the voice of the Beatles podcast that he's nice enough to let me have on and co-host with him. And we have the same birthday. That's fucking nuts. And we drive the same car. His name's Sam Stone. Sam Stone, welcome back to Guys Like Us Don't Die on Toilets.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I mean, look at it. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy created the buddy cop genre with 48 Hours and with Beverly Hills Cop. He had Judge Reinhold with that, and then he had Nick Nolte for 48 Hours and another 48 Hours. Thing is, it's really the Lethal Weapon franchise that cemented that and really define that entire genre, because truth be told, another 48 Hours sucks, and for me, the Beverly Hills Cop films are hit or miss. But no, this, and I think a lot of that when it comes to Lethal Weapon is really thanks to, in big part, the chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover in their performances.
Yep.
Donner's direction throughout all 4. And Shane Black, even though he only wrote the first 2, and even then only kind of on 2, it was his take on that franchise and creating those characters. I mean, that can't be understated or stated
too often.
Yeah.
In terms of what's my favorite, it's always the coin toss for me between 1 and 2. I know I did the commentary did the episode for 3, but that's because I knew nobody would chomp at the bit. At 3.
Nobody. Yeah. I appreciate you that sacrifice of.
Again, I enjoy the film. Yeah. It's just not like primo Lethal Weapon.
No.
When I'm like, hey, I really want to watch a Lethal Weapon movie. It's not like, let's watch 3.
The first thing is like, it's not going to be 3.
Yeah. If you watch Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, do you skip to 4?
3 is like an annual you don't have to read.
Yeah. Like most annuals.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting watching the progression of like Mel Gibson because he becomes, obviously he was big because of Mad Max and more so the Road Warrior before, but it's interesting because by Lethal Weapon 3 and especially by Lethal Weapon 4, he's an Academy Award winning like director.
That's right, yeah.
He's a global superstar by the time Lethal Weapon 4 comes out.
Yeah.
Whereas Danny Glover, he gets like Operation Dumbo Drop, which is a fine film if I remember.
Saw.
And Saw is like 5 years later. Yeah, about 5 years later. It comes out 2004, I think, if I remember correctly. So like 6 years. But no, it really is a phenomenal franchise. Am I fine with it being 4? Fine.
Yeah.
To chime in on your and Mike's debate about Lethal Weapon 2's original ending way back during episode 2, do I think Riggs should have died at the end of? I think it would be a very... Does it build towards it? Yes. But it would be a completely different film. I can almost understand why the studio thought it was a little too dark.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of the day, the studio wasn't thinking with their brain. They were thinking with their wallets.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? They were like, that's how we get more money. And like, the thing that, Mike and I were really kind of all about was like, how this, like you were saying, it would have changed not just buddy cop films, but just the action genre forever. This idea of like, hey, Mel Gibson isn't safe in a Lethal Weapon movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it adds this whole different dynamic. The biggest problem with that is that it leads to it and it doesn't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which
because
is
the tonal shift is there with the death of Rika and the death of all the other cops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, it builds to it, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it really would just be like the most depressing, like not depressing doesn't mean bad, but like the most depressing sequel of all time.
And at the end of the day, we're glad they made 3 and 4. You know what I mean?
Because at its core, this series is about their friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to see it survive.
Yeah. Well, because to
the point where it blossoms into a full fucking family.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
But yeah. So thanks for having me on.
Cool, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you talking all things Lethal Weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for listening. And I'm gonna share my final thoughts, and that'll be it. Basically, it's been a blast doing the 4 Lethal Weapon movies with all my buddies, and just sitting down, watching them again with them, and talking about them. Because again, I stressed it so many times, but it's all about the friendships. And I think what makes this podcast so much fun is the strong friendships I have with all 4 people that we did while recording. From all different, I've met these guys at all different moments, walks of life, for some for, almost 20 years, some for just 1 or 2 years. But it's just this great friendship, and that we can sit back and watch and enjoy the Lethal Weapon movies. I know personally, I can say for me and the other guys, we're not too old for this shit. And we're never going to be too old to watch the fucking Lethal Weapon movies, because they're just fun classics. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us babble on about Superman, Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson's career, and everything else in between. I hope you guys get the urge to watch some Lethal Weapon movies and talk about it with your friends, and who knows, go out and do a podcast about whatever you want to do. So thanks for listening, guys. This is Guys Like Us Don't Die on Toilets, signing out.
You're getting too old for this shit.